Yeah.
The instrument of torch.
I just did this job for Tim Hawkinson, the sculptor. And this is the studio I designed for Tim Hawkinson. To give you an idea. This is just a classic example. This was all done on this is how it ended up. It ended up a little different, but these are a couple of images of this trellis I did for Tim Hawkinson. This is Tim Hawkinson's studio. This is the inside of it.
Yeah, we're in the house of Scott Perry, the architect, who did something very interesting. He took a 1950s tract house in the Hollywood Hills, and he's added kind of a high-tech gloss to it, playing off the sort of high-tech against the original quality of the house without destroying either, making a very interesting dynamic tension. He also has an idea for expanding the house by using cargo containers.
That's the idea, Leon, frankly, the idea is to take a tract house or a ubiquitous structure and retrofit it and give it an architectural kind of sense of place, or an architectural kind of well-being, as it were.
And a kind of pizzazz or verb to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not, one of the ideas originally I had was that it's kind of a Home Depot idea, which is not just me, Scott Perry, but anybody could go out, buy a house like this or a similar, building, and plug things into it at their own whim. This is the telescoping tubing here. This is the material you see. It holds up every stop sign in the city of Los Angeles. This is called galvanized 1 3/4" telescoping tubing. I attached that to the panel structure. Everything here was bought. There's a place called Industrial Metal Supply in North Hollywood, and or at Home Depot. I mean, the whole idea was it's available. It's a kit of parts. I stuck it all on the roof of my car. I don't know if you saw my station wagon. I've got some Unistrut on there. Everything you see came from one of those places on the roof of my car. Then up here, the other feature is this is what you call rib lath. This is stucco lath. Typically, you see that would be on the inside of the stucco, which is what you put against your building paper, and then you plaster over that. So I exposed the stucco lath here. That's my whole approach, is to do away with air conditioning, Leon. Air conditioning and air just is anathema to me. So this is all standard. So you got a hose here, Mike. The standard garden hose runs up here into, it's like 3/4 inch PVC. Everything is glue joints, no solder, no leaks. And you get these little heads, and I bought these. So these are a little pricey. These little extenders, so you can kind of adjust. You see, you can.
Yes, it creates a kind of tropical atmosphere. It's wonderful.
How much did that cost?
This is about maybe $150. Home Depot.
Yes.
I mean, the idea that I mentioned earlier is the house, per se, the 55 tract house is an armature. And my idea is to plug things into it, things like these elements here, which you can buy at Home Depot, containers you can buy off the piers of Long Beach, and you stack them in or you plug them in. That idea is a strong idea. And it has to do, again, with one of the most ubiquitous building blocks on the planet today, which is the ISO 20-foot container. And I would like to demonstrate how you can use them. And I think that if I started to find a way to retrofit this particular structure or this particular recycled part, then others would come along behind and find better and more effective and more cost-effective ways to do the same.
So essentially, as I understand it, this is the original house as improved by you in the first phase. And your idea for expanding your floor area is to go upwards using cargo containers, correct?
Precisely. The first idea, Leon, is this being, as you correctly point out in gray, the existing house, is to come in and create a superstructure outside the walls of the existing house. You create a steel superstructure which doesn't impact or require you to do demolition and rebuilding of the existing building. The idea would be that once you have this superstructure in place, you can build essentially 3 stories or 2 stories on top of the existing house. You can build it in many different ways. You could stick build it, you can use pre-engineered building systems, or you could use what I chose to do, which is to buy containers, which you can buy at the Port of Long Beach or the Port of LA for $2,100 each. That's 8 feet wide, 8'6" high, and 20 feet long. Reconditioned, which means they've been sandblasted and painted, primed and painted. You bring them up here, and we're talking, you come into this cul-de-sac with a tractor trailer from the Port of Long Beach, and you drop the containers here in the front of the house. All these other elements, these kit of parts elements, including the framework, and you just start the sequence of erection. And once you get the superstructure in place, then you simply lift these containers up and stack them, as these sequence shots show. The third floor, which starts in this sequence of a 20-foot, these are 20-foot containers, by the way. It's a studio module, which is my design studio. The new addition would go in this area above the existing garage and the existing master bedroom. The reason I wanted to put it there was twofold. One, structurally, I can get columns on either side of the building here, straddling the existing building to support the second story. From a circulation point of view, from a stair point of view, the best place to bring the stair up is in this area here. And the third reason is I didn't want to put a second story over the living or social area of the house, which is in this axis here with the skylights and the solar panels. They're brilliant skylights. They're very ineffective, very inexpensive. They're double insulated, low E glass. $250 out the door. But the effect is, you see with the shadow, you know, the light play you get in here, and then of course they open so you get ventilation through the roof. The whole idea is to open and allow the roof to breathe. Now, the containers are going to go all the way over to the other end of the house. So there'll be one container from the center line of the roof here, going all the way over there, and then the second container is over here, and it runs 40 feet this way, and they're offset. So once you get to this point, you're standing, you see, if you stand on top of this, you're about 2 feet below where you'd be on the second floor. Mm-hmm. You can see what incredible vistas you get. Yeah, and then the idea, the ventilation coming out over this roof and under and up, is you even get little sweet little breezes from time to time that'll cool this whole thing. There's another feature to this design which is important. It's what I refer to as the exoskeleton. And the exoskeleton is, again, a unistrut framework that is like an armature, sits over the containers themselves and sits off of the face of the containers about 18 inches and creates a skin, a second skin, which is an energy-producing skin, which is a ventilation encouraging and shading skin.
What exactly does that mean? Is this the second skin here you're talking about?
This is the second skin here. These blue rectangles are photovoltaic panels.
So there's a space between the container and the exterior skin.
Exactly. You see from these images, you can see it's about 18 inches. And again, this would be an exterior deck. You can see this unistrut, exoskeleton is sitting up above the existing container. It both creates a ventilation and in the winter creates somewhat of a heating, entrapment. It creates a shaded area where you have an exterior deck, for instance, in this deck application. And the other feature on the roof are these green pans that I'm going to build into this unistrut framework itself.
What are they?
No, this is the idea is to create allotments up there. You can grow vegetables, or you could grow herbs, you can grow things on the roof, as well as just native vegetation. It's the whole concept of the green roof idea, which is really one of the key ideas, is what I call the green container concept. Is the greening of the container, because the containers are so industrial and hard-edged, I want to do something to soften that impact. I look out on these roofs, Leon. I mean, they're just higgledy-piggledy. What they are is just mechanical contractors coming in. You see the way they dump stuff on these buildings over here? That condenser? They just junk stuff on there. It's just a mess. And I'm saying the roofs are the most important part of an urban landscape, and one that you can
especially here where you have hillsides and everybody is looking down on.
You see, looking through here, the vents, they're painted red, and then you got the whole vent zone here, and then the daylight zone. The whole idea is to set up kind of a roof landscape. This is actually the best part of the whole house, in my opinion, is this whole roof thing. And it kind of designed itself. It's like a piece that just evolved.
How does your wife feel about that?
I haven't had her up here recently, Michael. She
mentioned that she liked air conditioning.
She would be hard pressed to get up here, and she's in her little office with her AC on. I don't say anything because the political issues are not worth addressing at this point. But being kind of a passive energy guy, it's kind of a tricky one. But Yeah, I haven't had her up here. She hasn't admired my solar array of late, but she understands what I think she understands what I'm trying to do.
At the moment, the dynamic between the old house and your kit of parts, your high-tech elaborations, if you like, works very well. Don't you think this will overwhelm the original house aesthetically? So that that balance will be destroyed. It will look as though this is some giant outer space creature that's sitting on top of this poor little house. I mean, these are really projections looking at the level. What would it look like to someone standing at ground level here looking up?
This shot here, Leon, is looking from basically the driveway and looking up. I find it an urban architecture which to me creates a dynamic and exciting juxtaposition which reinforces the suburban scale of the tract house and creates, I think, a tension between the two elements, which I find attractive.
In the fascination with the idea, you have to remember that you have to create humane spaces.
I mean, my vision has a lot of natural attributes that have to be woven into, you know, the kind of core of whatever it is you're making. So you have to bring that green element through the technology. So you can start with the structural, the Mondrian, you know, the three-dimensional matrix. And then you weave green through that somehow. You could do this great section through the plan.
You could build a whole city out of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, artists are beginning to see it as an art form. I mean, what Shigeru Ban did in New York, where he stacked them on that wharf down in Chelsea, right, and created this 1,400-foot long wall of containers. So where containers become like an art form, that's what I'm talking about. It's all part of the American tradition of ingenuity and innovation, which I find really interesting. One of the great things about our culture.